My first tip is for you to grow orchids in clear flower pots. This is actually a soup pot that I repurposed into an orchid pot. I think this was an order of kanji. And I just put holes in the little sides so that there's aeration. I use clear pots because clear pots help you figure out if the roots are wet or dry. Also, a lot of times you want your orchid roots to be exposed to sun because they do absorb some sun through their roots. My next tip is to look at the roots of your orchids, get to know the color of the roots of your orchids, because once you know the baseline color, you'll be able to tell when you should water your orchids. Typically, when orchids are dry and thirsty, you see how the roots are more gray, bluish gray, not as green. When the roots are wet, they are definitely a lot more green. Let me show you. So this right here is a wet root. You can see that I just recently watered this specific orchid. And unfortunately, this pot is not as clear. It's a bit translucent, but this is a wet orchid because the roots are very green, whereas this is a dry root. And this root obviously gets drier faster because it's exposed. It's exposed to air and it doesn't have orchid bark to keep it moist for a little bit longer. If you don't have clear pots, another thing that you can use is an orchid pot, which has slotted holes or some holes for aeration and also for you to be able to visualize and see the roots. This is a Siderea japonica, and it's currently blooming. It's opening up its flowers. I also do not fret when orchid leaves turn yellow, as long as it's usually one at a time, because that's just part of its natural plant cycle. And I will only pull out the leaf once it's really loose. Like right now, if I tug it, it's still quite attached to the plant, so I'll just leave it as is. Even though it's not aesthetically pleasing, it's completely fine to leave it. This is not a tip, but I've had this orchid for, I would say, 12 years now. Definitely over 10 years, because I've had this orchid before I've lived in this place, and I know how long I've lived in this place. I didn't think that I would have an orchid last for so long, but here she is, and she's blooming again for me. She typically blooms twice a year. This is the current flower stem. This is the old flower stem. So I didn't cut the old flower stem, even though the flowers had expired, because I thought it would rebloom from that flower stem, and it didn't. Instead, it grew a new flower spike, which is all good to me. So yeah, she is a special one because she's just a regular grocery store bought orchid, but she's been really, really good to me, and I love how she looks. I like to keep things simple because I don't have time, and simple is easy. So how I fertilize my orchids is I buy an orchid spray, Miracle-Gro orchid spray. I've been using it for, I don't know, a year. I've used other orchid sprays, but this is the one that I currently have in my supply cabinet. And it's quite easy because all you do is literally spray the roots. I usually spray twice a week whenever I remember, and I try to spray when I can see that the orchid is growing. So there's 3 signs of growth that I look for: either a new leaf, which usually comes from the middle, root growth, so that typically looks like, I'll show you, this is new root growth right here. See how that is like a young green nubbin? This one right here, that's new root growth. And then obviously a new flower stem. That is also a sign that I look for, and that's typically when I would fertilize.